Hello again. This obviously is good quality close-up photography that was, for its time, nearly 40 years ago, was a breakthrough in iris photography to get this close. This picture was taken by someone named Doug Thompson, who made one of the first iris cameras called the Lena. That was a handheld camera, and Doug traveled with me many places in the US and also other parts of the world. And we took photographs, thousands in his case. He took the photographs tens of thousands of times for lots and lots and lots and lots of people and lots of circumstances, and trying to look for iris changes. For example, we had people that knew they were going to have heart surgery, so we photographed their eyes before and after the surgery to see if the surgery created any changes in the iris. Nothing. We also had situations where people had an unanticipated accident, car accident, broken bones, pretty serious, but they had their iris pictures taken some weeks or months before, photographed them again, nothing. We kept looking for what changes. What we did see happen was when we photographed, and I personally photographed some babies at birth. I mean, I literally got the parents' permission and the doctor, and by the way, I actually videotaped a cesarean and then photographed the baby's eyes afterwards while all gowned up and so on, and photographed it several other times with other babies, and we found no brown dots in any one of the constitutions of children, and rarely ever under the age of 5. We did photograph some brown patches at 18 months that filled in gradually over 6 to 8 years. So we found that the fiber arrangements, which you can call them what you want, stroma, fiber arrangements, vascular system. Some people believe that they're muscles, and there are muscles inwoven in all of this. But for me, this is a vascular system that is circulating blood into the interior, touching the pupil and back again. And there's the other cascade of humor that also goes to the cornea and back to the edge of the iris again. So we photographed these individual fibers in here, and to my amazement, we were not able to photograph a single fiber inside of one of these locations ever change. If it was already white in some way, it stayed white. If it was broken in some form, it stayed broken. We never saw one single fiber grow, arrive, change. Yes, you can change the dynamics of this by constricting the pupil using a lot of focusing light. You can constrict it down and all of these collapse. But when you relax it, they all come back again to the existing shape. We did photograph individual brown locations, by whatever you want to call them, doesn't matter to me. We photographed these arriving in small children, but most noticeably really accelerating around 4 or 5 years of age, and right through the age of 8 or 9 or 10 seems to be the window where these arrive more significantly. We did photograph some of them accumulating more past the age of 10, but we did not photograph any new ones actually form. One time, and this is to the credit of Ellen Jensen, she did photograph and showed me an individual, very distinctive brown jewel form in the iris of a client, somewhere in mid-30s. Only time, thousands of times. So we do know the jewels arrive, but the flowers don't. I can't tell you what that means. Do these actually form later because they're genetically planned to form in that location later? Because we don't see any indication that a very strong emotional event forms one. Tragic accidents don't form them. So we don't see them forming as a result of the causation of a physical or emotional event. So where do they come from? How do they arrive? I'm now of the opinion that both of these constitutions, the flower type constitution and the jewel type constitution, both arrive from the mother's family. That's just my current position. It's new. I'm not saying it's right, but that's what I'm operating under, is that these are, if you will, the law of opposites attracting in the family tree. Many, many thousands of times we've photographed couples, and you'll see this jewel flower composite, male, female, doesn't matter. You know, by the way, I'm not minimizing other constitutions of stream or jewel or shaker jewel, stream flower. I'm not minimizing those. But I know now these two are the primary initiating force. That means the flower expansive, the jewel constrictive. It might be electro, jewel, magnetic flower, and there's always these dynamics. And we referred to how the jewel personality has 6 primary attributes. The flower personality has 6 primary attributes, and how they're expressed. But I'm pretty sure they both arrive from the mother's side of the family, even though the jewel is arriving later. To me, it means it arrives from the masculine. What I mean by that is there's inside and outside. So the flower forms, and then the jewel arrives to form the outside. So this is my way of working with it, and I have certain theoretical applications I'm applying now that might be capable of, well, changing or healing these patterns, or even the Holy Grail would be to change them photographically. And I'm engaged in an experiment that's designed to demonstrate that these might well be the epigenetic methylations from the mitochondrial DNA of the mother. So that's why they would come only from the mother, is that they are the mitochondrial accumulation of what previous generations have consolidated. These are some of the things about how this works. Just to give you an idea where the future of this is going, and then later I'll introduce this other program to you. But what I do with an iris is appreciate the divine diversity in a constitution. Irises are indeed, like fingerprints, and no two of them are the same. So how to identify the feeling-oriented or thinking attributes, the consolidation stream function, the mobilization function? How do you appreciate and guide an individual constitution of an iris? Well, I found that the significance of the constitution is modified by the existence of the birth order in the family tree. Meaning, we've gone through the birth order, and those of you who've used the birth order in the past, you know how it works. The birth order book is available on the website for you. And so is, by the way, the old iris book from 35 years ago. It's available there. But we found that the birth order modifies the constitution. What I mean by that is that you have, we showed you the body types. You notice that you had 6 yang body types, stronger, more physically assertive from the father's side of the family, and 6 yin body types from the mother's side of the family. So if this constitution had a birth order pattern that pulled it into the father's family, there is a very different type of expression of personality or body or social phenomenon. The way you would interpret this constitution changes. But if you had the same constitution and it was a yin 3 boy, 4 girl, 6 girl body type birth order pattern, then you would interpret this constitution along a different line or vector. So that's why I use it to more accurately guide the person. In this guidance process, I've made reference for you that I like to use 3 yeses. If it's a jewel, I say, you have a good mind. That usually identifies something they know. If you have a flower structure, you say, looks like you have lots of feelings. Let's define how those feelings affect you. Jewel, flower, identify the positive. I do that 3 times to describe their natural attributes in a positive way. Then I come back and say, yes, if you're going to use this analytical, seeking, understanding mind really well, there are some lessons that you'll need to learn. The lesson is your opposite. So if you're going to be a jewel, you're going to have to learn how to open, allow, feel, receive. Jewels will start asking you questions about how, why. I don't need to do my mind. I chatter, right? If you're going to be a jewel, you need to do a flower. If you're going to be a flower, you need to be a jewel, because the flower needs to learn the independent, self-focusing nature of the personal responsibility that a jewel person sometimes believe they're so good at. These opposites. So I start out giving them the positive, then I give them a little bit of the opposite. What do they need to learn? And then you describe what happens when you merge jewel flower together. What happens when you get a jewel to think in a non-verbal, non-analytical way? What do you get when you have a jewel who can think in images or who can visualize instead of thoughts? You get something very different. What do you get when you have a flower who learns to be specifically focused within themselves? Sometimes I give them the responsibility to count their vertebrae while they're walking or while they're relating to someone, how to stay inside of themselves, because a flower has a tendency to go toward other people or want other people to come toward them. They want to be seen. Social emotional projection. Jewels have a natural tendency to disassociate. Antipathy, sympathy, antipathy, they're opposite functions. Socialization tendency, flower. Disassociation, intellectual, going out of body and away from social contact. And sometimes the extremes of that social disassociation leads into the desire to die or to be in heaven, or only to focus on the spiritual phenomenon and nothing to do with materiality. There are positive, negative social outcomes of either one of these two. So how do you identify who they are? Affirm this. Yes, there is a verb, an adjective, an adverb for all of these. There's a vitamin, there's a mineral, there's a gland, there's an organ, there's a vibrational medicine, there's a flower essence, there's a homeopathic remedy, and the list goes on that serve the function of these. Will there be a probable outcome to this? Yes. The outcome to this is primarily what I call cycles and seasons. there is a stage of life where this forms. There is a stage of life where it manifests in the body or in the mind, in our social emotional attractions, in the children that we conceive and the grandchildren that arrive. Yes, there's a cycles and seasons pattern on top of the constitution, on top of the birth order. The third controlling function is cycles and seasons. Later on, I'll explain it more thoroughly because that will be the next lecture and where that leads. But I'm saying that, yes, you can be a wonderful practitioner if you just supply the nutritional benefits of the right foods according to the pattern you see. It is a service, it is a benefit. It can even curtail, diminish, or stop completely the arrival of certain symptoms. You use the right biochemical molecular compounds, be they natural or synthetic, you're going to get different reactions from different constitutional types and according to the individual sector where this is. What I would like to introduce you to is just the interface between the systems. Now, I did not grow up with any knowledge of the existence of meridians or acupuncture points. I didn't grow up with the understanding of the circuitry of the chakra systems and so on. Much of my experience of this has arrived past the age of 25, and it has arrived later and later. And even recently, my experience of cycles and seasons is still arriving. So I want to show you a bit of a graphic. Now, part of what I'm trying to show you is I've always seen this iris as not just in the head, in the iris, but this being the containment field around the human body. You can call it the etheric, you can call it prana, you can call it spirit body, you can call it astral body, you can call it lots of different names in different cultures, because it does have different names in different cultures. But this area, to me, is the area around the human body that's circulating slowly over a period of time under specific rhythms of the day, the month, the year, the stage of life. They arrive early in life or later in life, but they are scripted patterns. Some of them are very stationary and some of them migrate. Now, just to let you know, I don't speak of the existence of a spirit body just as an opinion. I've experienced it, I've seen it on other people. So I've seen this aura or spirit body with my own eyes. I don't see them all the time now. Periodically I do, but I've had an experience, or many of them, where I've gotten the chance to see the existence of it. It's so remarkably beyond description, but it relates to the rings of the iris, meaning that there are rings in the iris as there are rings in the energy field. But those rings, they have a great deal of influencing not only how our constitution works, or how our body type works, or the birth order works, but how we interact with social, physical phenomenon in nature around us. So that's why I'm interested in that part. I'd like to show you a brief chart. It's not the end-all be-all of the charts. I'll give you a better one, much more detailed at another time. Here, let me show you basically the system of circulation in the iris. This is how I see the iris. Yes, the physical body is inside this field. This field has rings inside of it. They have specific functions. But for me, these rings and these individual functions are related to the birth order and the family tree. So what I'm saying to you is there are 6 boys, 6 girls. You have all 12. you have a tendency to use one a little bit more than the others, or in a combination. If you look closely, this individual line goes straight up all in triangles, and this one comes down all in circles. This is a circulation of ascending and descending life force. Now, these ascending and descending forces, they relate to individual places in the family tree, 3 generations or so behind you. It relates also, yes, to your parents. It relates to your grandparents and your great-grandparents. So this is how I see a person. And when I see an iris, what I look for, like you saw in that previous close-up, I'm looking at the different sectors of the person like I'm looking at different sectors here. I do not intend these to be chakras. I'm not a chakra advocate. I have no direct experience of actually seeing one. But these are the parts of the family tree that I believe that control this external process. This external process, the field of the individual, is gradually bringing to you your law of attraction. What I mean by that is, if your great-grandmother on your father's side had a specific ancestral emotional difficulty that's coded in your DNA, your epigenetic DNA, it's now waiting in your etheric field, your astral field, wherever you want to put it. It's waiting there to arrive to you at a specific time. Genes are calendar-based. They turn off and on at different times. There are some that are very powerful for the first 7 years, then the next 7 years, and so on. There are cycles of these influences. So when I'm looking at an iris, I'm using the sectors that I showed you. I just examine the sectors that are frontal. All of the frontal ones are triangles. All of those in the medial parts or the lateral parts of the iris in the left eye, they have a tendency to be in the back. So I'm saying this is a circulation of life force. Now later on, if we learn how to mobilize this sequence, I think that we are capable of the greatest potential for elevating well-being, the ability to cure our own bodies or help somebody else change. I think the goal is to identify and feel each one of these 12 parts. Now, if we are not engaged sufficiently in feeling one of those parts, we usually end up with a law of attraction. If we have a law of attraction and there's already an epigenetic boundary or crystallized memory there, and we hit it with another memory, it initiates a symptom in that location. You can have a dozen people have the same emotion and not end up with the same symptom, except for the one who had a previously existing ancestral memory in that location, had the same emotion as all of the other ones. That one would trigger a symptom in a corresponding location. The corresponding location is going to be a different gland, organ, body system, but it's also going to be a different type of emotional response. Those emotional responses are also the same emotions as all 12 of the birth order. So you might only have 2 or 3 kids and you go, well, why should I bother learning the other 9? Well, the other 9 are part of your innate soul attributes that you need to develop because you want to, not because you have to. I mean, that's telling you a lot. I'm saying there are many, many latent attributes inside us, inside the iris, inside the soul, inside the body and mind that we can develop if we choose to develop them. So when I'm doing a consultation, I'm doing my best to locate where a person is in the constitutional pattern. Where are they aligned when it comes to the birth order pattern? Because that alignment oftentimes is some of their most natural skills that they really like about themselves. For example, if I have a number 2 boy, which is this red triangle right at the belly, the number 2 boy has fire. They use that fire for sports, aggressiveness. They use that for motivation or success. They like to move into the world. They like that about themselves. So I like to identify if this is a flower 2 boy, that's going to accelerate. But then I need to describe the natural abilities of how you take the 2 boy, and remember they come in threes, that links to the 4 boy, that's fellowship, that's fraternity, that's alliances, that's friendship. When you take fire in the belly and you lift it to the heart, that's friendship, but that's also joy. That's celebration, that's laughter, that's many other things. So if I define for the 2 boy the emotional opportunity it has but to create friendship, and then how the 4 boy goes to the 6 boy, which is in the head, and that's a pituitary fire in the head, and that's the ability to transmit, to lead, to make changes in the world. So we're really talking about a 2 boy flower associated with the adrenal system, associated with the gallbladder, and how it can affect the 3, which is the liver on that side. So I'm saying that each and every one of these positions you need to develop on your own. You do them all the time. For example, the 2 boy position is also circulation of the blood. You do that every day. Now, the empowerment of the blood is your choice, because that same position is personal passion. We can all use that. Personal purpose, a sense of motivation, a sense of wanting to go into the exterior world. A lot of people don't want to deal with the exterior world, especially as it is these days. They want to come back and hunker down into the family, or they escape, or they want to go into mental escapism with their devices or spirituality or something else. They don't want to be in the world with emotional purpose and passion, because that drives the heart, that drives the head. So all of these positions, they have contributions to all other positions. So when I'm looking at an iris, this is what I do. I look at the overview of the constitution. I look at the overview of the birth order and how it's influencing it. And then I come back and describe the strengths and weaknesses of that iris and that birth order position. And then I give them some sense of responsibility. Because probably one of the key things in this entire structure is going to be number 1 girl. Number 1 girl, you can see it's at the bottom of this. It also corresponds to the hips and the pelvic cavity. This corresponds with the earthly will, the will to exist in the world, the will to be alive, the will to hold it together. There's a whole bunch of very important parts of this. Later on, you can call it the I am if you want, because it has an element of that. So we can describe how that works. What's the most important part of this that probably all of us need? 100% of us? More will. No, not more willfulness, but the will that is about personal responsibility to want to grow as a human, as a soul, in personal responsibility of ourselves, in service to others, and in whatever degree of adoration that you want to have for the divine. Personal will. It's a very important location. It's right down there in the pelvic cavity. It's right there at the coccyx. It's a very important place. Right above is the 2 girl position, a highly significant position of emotional independence. It's an opposite to the one just below it. And so you can study these as cross, 1 boy, 1 girl, You can do them in relationships. One girl, which is father's mother, is married to father's father, obviously, and these two are a relationship. There's a dynamic circulation of why they came together, jewel flower, in this location. One boy, this is mother's father, and he's married to mother's mother. This is a relationship phenomenon. So in the pelvic cavity, there are two primary relationships of jewel flower patterns ruling your digestive function, your balance equilibrium, your lung breath function, your metabolism, your urinary systems, the kidney function, the adrenal function. This is all regulated by the interwoven relationship of the ancestors in this location. I don't know about you, but mine were not all that healthy. I mean, my grandparents went through difficult experiences. World War II, the Depression, World War I. My ancestry on the higher level goes all the way back to the Civil War, which I heard was not all that nice. So all of those ancestral memories are coded inside of my own DNA and are coded to affect me at different times. Wow. Yes, I think that there is a way to be able to go to each one of these locations and engage in a positive representation of that location. People say, well, wait a minute, I don't know my mother's mother. I've never seen her. What I heard was not nice about her, and then her mother was a prostitute, and we don't want anything to do with my mother's family. Look, if you want nothing to do with your mother's family, why don't you just get out a big knife or sledgehammer and cut off both of your feet? No, I'm serious. If you want nothing to do with your mother's family, you're already cutting your feet off. You're cutting your life off. Ideally, what you would do is to fully access the accessible memories of your mother's family, and then one by one, appreciate them and start to deal with what's there. Family is important, but you're not intended to be a slave to the ancestral dynamics of unfinished business in your mother's family or your father's family. Now, remember, I told you a little while ago, the jewel flower pattern begins in the mother's family. Yes, I think the stream and shaker is a bit more to the outside, but we won't describe why on that. So I'm suggesting that it might be possible to be able to go through this circuitry, which, by the way, you do every day, whether you know it or not. It's called sunrise and sunset. It's called inhale and exhale. You're going through this circuitry all the time. I'm suggesting that you might be able to go through it with more awareness, more intention, more sense of purpose, the desire to want to grow, the desire to want to feel, and then the moment you do, something's going to come. I know that's weird, but the moment you make an emotional commitment to want to grow, something comes. It comes in a variety of things: tiredness, confusion, doubt, numbness, lethargy, anger. The moment that you really want to deal with the unresolved emotions in your entire family tree, you're going to be given an opportunity to deal with an avalanche of the arrival of cause-effect law of attraction events. How you handle them makes all the difference in the world. You can handle them and go, don't want to do that, I need my beer. Nope, don't want to do that, I need my ice cream. Nope, don't want to do that, I need music. No, I'm busy, I got to go, I got to work. The grandkids need me. There's all kinds of ways of denying the actual opportunity to grow and feel as a human being responsibly. So this is how I use the iris. I want to see a soul, appreciate the soul, ring the bells upon the line of where that soul is obviously headed, talk about their strengths and weaknesses on the way, and say, oh, by the way, now that you're on your way in 1/12 of your direction, do you know that you have other 11 attributes that also can facilitate your well-being in the long run? All 12 of these attributes belong to you. They're yours. Is it limited to 12? No, I don't think so. I think later on there's 7, 8, 9, and 10. I think there's more. But we start out with, like our little tricycle, we start out with that which we were given as a soul in the incarnation into this body that we only inhabit for a short period of time. As much as we'd like to believe it, I think a lifetime is just the blink of an eye. So what we do during this time, to me, makes the greatest difference. So this is my overall explanation of how the RAYID system works and how I use it. Next time, I'd like to continue here, go on with the cycles and seasons, and invite you to begin to explore these individual parts of your own family. If you're one of those who has the endowment where you know both sides of your family's history, good, keep it. Now, most of the social history is nice to have, but what we really want is the emotional history, and that can be accessed by you when you want to access it. So thank you for your enduring patience, for my tendency to go far afield at times. Thank you for your patience for those of you who've learned or practiced or distributed this information. You are free to do so. You can take any one of these graphics, by the way, are available for you to have. And that's my offering to you. You can use anything that we have. You don't need my permission. You're welcome to take anything and use it for yourself. All right. I'll see you again. Bye-bye.